Hello, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. So, today we are going to discuss about 10 most important SQL interview questions with answers exclusively for testers. Okay. So, previously I have given you the SQL interview questions and answers for freshers. Then we have discussed about Oracle SQL interview questions for freshers. We have discussed about the Unix interview questions as well, but in this series we are going to discuss about most important SQL interview questions or database related interview questions for testers. Okay. The first question is, what is SQL? So SQL stands for Structured Query Language, which is specifically designed to communicate with the databases. It is a language, it is not a database management system. SQL pronounced as SQL is very widely used language in most of the database management systems like Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL, etc. SQL provides a simple and more efficient way of reading, writing, executing the data from the system. So this is actually one of the SQL interview question, as well as this kind of questions might be asked in the SQL interview question for testers as well. What is mean by database testing? So this is most important question for SQL interview questions for testers. So I have given few pointers. First pointer is the database testing is nothing but checking the database with the integrity, its performance, etc. Following are aspects considered in the database testing: testing of data integrity, testing of data validity, database related performance, testing functions, procedures, packages, triggers, etc. etc. These are the objects of the databases. What is mean by SQL constraint? What are constraints used in SQL? So in database testing, constraint is most important thing. So you require to check the constraint. You require to try entering the data where constraints are there in the column. So constraints are important in database testing or SQL testing. So we can go ahead. Constraints are used to set the rules for all the records in the table. If constraint get violated, then it can abort the action that caused it. So I've told you, like, constraints will abort the action whatever caused it. Constraints are defined while creating the database itself. If create table statement used, even after you can alter table and you can create. So there are two ways to create constraint. One is create table or altering the table. So these are five major constraints used in the SQL, and which is important in SQL testing as well. First is not null constraint. So in SQL testing, you require to check where the not null constraint applied for table, column, and you require to check entering the data in the not null constraint. It should fire the error. Not null constraint indicates the column must have the value or cannot be left null. Okay. Second is unique constraint. This constraint is used to ensure that each row or column has unique value. No value is being repeated in any other row or column. Okay. So you must require to check about the uniqueness of the each row in unique constraint. Primary key constraint is same as a unique constraint, but it should not allow the null values. Okay. Then foreign key constraint. It is nothing but the referential integrity of the data. So you require to check the relation between the two tables in the foreign key constraint. Check constraint. This is also most important constraint used in the SQL. So check constraint is the constraint where you require to give some condition. I would like to give you an example of a bank. If you can open the account only if you have 1000 rupees in your account. Okay. So here you can use the column as a check constraint 1000. if check uh, check constraint greater than or equal to 1000. So if that is less than or equal to 1000, then you can't create that account. So just like that, you can add the check constraint. Okay. These are five most important constraints which are used in the SQL. Explain distinct in the SQL with example. So distinct statement is used with select statement in SQL. If record contains the duplicate value, distinct is used to remove the duplicates among the records. Okay, and it should give you the distinct values or distinct records from the column name. Select distinct column name from the table name is the syntax for distinct. Example is select distinct employee number from the employees. The above statement will select only distinct or unique uh, records or employee numbers from the table named employee. Okay, it will retrieve the unique records or distinct records. What are different steps in database testing? So this is important question for database or SQL testing. First is constraint check, then validation for field size, then stored procedure. If there are stored procedure, functions, packages, trigger, you require to check that. Matching application field size to the database and indexes for performance based issues. So you require to check the indexes for performance based issues if you are a database tester. What is mean by data driven test? This is also important question. In data table, to test the multi numbers of our data driven test is used. By using this, it is easily replace the parameters at the same time from different locations. So data driven test means you require to use the parameter for checking the data from the different locations. Okay, it is actually the testing based on the databases, which is a data driven test. Which are different statements in data definition language statements in SQL? So what are different data definition language statements in SQL? That is the question. There are following statements which are data definition language. First is create command used to create an object. Alter command used to modify the existing object. Drop command, drop is used to delete the statement, delete the object in the database. Same question, what is mean by data manipulation language? So here are some statements of data manipulation language which is used to manipulate the data. First is update statement. Update statement of SQL are used to update the records from the table. Second is insert statement, which is used to insert the data in the SQL statement. Delete statement, which is used to delete the records in the SQL. These are data manipulation language statements. What is mean by normalization and what is purpose of normalization? So normalization is nothing but the fixing the data structure of the database. Okay, normalization is used for following purpose: to eliminate the redundant or useless data. So if you can see in database there is lot of useless data, so you require to eliminate that data. Second is to reduce the complexity of the data. Third is to ensure the relationship between the table as well as the data in the table. And fourth is to ensure the data dependencies and data is logically stored. So these are four purposes of normalization. Explain data loading steps in the database testing. So this is most important question. So you require to load the data in the database testing. So following steps you can use. Source data should be known. That is one thing. Target data should be known. Source database you should have to aware of. Target database you should have to aware of. Compatibility of source and target should be checked. You require to check the compatibility whether that databases are compatible or not. Else you are using one source database as Oracle, target database as a MySQL, and there is no compatibility in between that. That should not work. In SQL Enterprise Manager, you require to go to SQL Enterprise Manager, run DTS package, opening corresponding DTS package. You have to compare the column of a target and source data, correct? You require to check the number of rows, number of objects from source and target, it should be same. After updating the data in the source, check whether any changes appear on the target as well. Check the null and junk characters. So these are few steps after database loading, data loading in the database testing. So uh, in simple words, you require to compare the data from source to target, which is similar. Means you require the data should be similar, or whatever the requirement is. Accordingly, the data should reflect in the source and target database. You require to check that. With using multiple SQL statements, you can perform that. How to write test cases in database testing? This is also important question. Writing test cases is like a functional testing only in the database testing as well. Writing test cases is same as a functional testing. First, you have to know about the functional requirement of the application. Then you have to decide the parameter of writing the test cases. Okay, you require to write the objective. Writing objective of you would like to test. Input method. You require to write the input method and the expected results of the database. You can add the screenshot of the databases as well. Okay. Next question is, what are properties of transaction? So this is also important question asked in the interviews. Properties of transaction are ACID. You can remember as acid properties of the transaction. First is atomicity, which ensure the completeness of transaction performs. Checks whether transaction is completed successfully. If not, then transaction is aborted at the failure point, and the previous transaction is rolled back to initial state of changes undone. So that is atomicity. Atomicity is nothing but checking the completeness of a transaction. Consistency, which ensures all the changes made through the successful transaction reflected properly on the database. Okay, second is consistency. Consistency checks the changes made are successful or not. Isolation ensures the transactions are performed independently and changes made by one transaction are not reflected to other. Okay, so isolation is nothing but checking the independent transaction or independence property of a transaction. Durability ensures that the changes made in the database with committed transactions persist as its even system failure. So whether transaction is durable or not, you require to check that. So these are four properties of a transaction. ACID: A for atomicity, C for consistency, I for isolation, D for durability. How to test database manually? Testing database manually involves checking of the data at the backend and to see whether the additional data in front end is affecting backend or not. And the same for delete, insert, or update like statements. So manual database testing is nothing but you require to go to application, you require to check the data on the application, and you require to check same reflection in the database. As an example, let's log in the screen. If you are logging in the screen with some username and password, you require to check it at the same uh, transaction in the database level, whether it is happening or not. What are different database environments used in any project? So this is common for all projects or for associates who requires to work on project environment. It is not this is not a question for specifically for database testers, but all the uh, testers or all the software engineers. The project the database environment varies according to different projects as well as according to different organizations as well. So these are different environments used in projects. So this is the this is not I can say this is not accurate answer. According to the different companies, the different projects, the environment of project varies. Okay. So first is the development environment where development task needs to be done. Test environment where testers do the testing. UAT environment, that is user acceptance testing, where business analyst or tester do the user acceptance testing. Then performance testing. Most of the time, performance testing environment is not available. You require to create the performance testing environment. Uh, in this environment, you require to test the data with using test the performance of the application with using huge data. And last is production environment, which we are going to use or which users are going to use. So these are five environments which are used in any project. Okay, so this is about all database SQL related database or database related interview questions for testers. I hope you like this video. If you like this video, kindly do subscribe my channel. If you want any kind of database interview questions in PDF format, please subscribe my channel and put your email ID in the comment box so that I can provide you all the interview questions in PDF format or PPT format. Thanks for listening to this video till the end, and cheers. Thank you.